This ancient philosophy will free you from caring what people think. Alright, let's be real. How much of your life have you spent worrying about what other people think of you? How many decisions have you made based on fear of judgment? How many dreams have you buried because someone somewhere might not approve? If you're like most people, the answer is too many. But what if I told you that this entire way of thinking is an illusion, that the chains of public opinion aren't real, at least not in the way you think they are? Today, we're diving into ancient wisdom, the kind of hard-hitting, perspective-shattering philosophy that will change how you see yourself forever. By the end of this, you won't just understand why you shouldn't care what people think, you'll feel it in your bones.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Let's start with a brutal truth. People don't think about you as much as you think they do. It feels like they do, right? Like every move you make is under scrutiny, like every mistake is being recorded and judged. But here's the paradox. Everyone else is too busy worrying about themselves to truly care about you. Think about it. How often do you spend hours analyzing someone else's choices? Maybe for a moment, maybe even for a day. But then life moves on. And so does everyone else. The truth is, we are all trapped inside our own minds, consumed by our own insecurities, our own desires, our own fears. So, if everyone is too lost in their own world to truly obsess over yours, why are you still afraid? This is where ancient philosophy comes in. The Stoics, the Buddhists, even the existentialists, they all saw through this illusion. They understood that the opinions of others are like shadows on a wall. They flicker, they change, they distort, and yet we treat them like solid objects. But what happens when you stop seeing them as real? What happens when you decide that judgment is meaningless? You become free. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus had a rule. It's not what happens to you, but how you react to it that matters. Now, apply this to judgment. If someone disapproves of you, does that actually affect you? Does it change anything tangible in your life? Only if you let it. The real prison isn't other people's opinions, it's your reaction to them. And here's where things get crazy. Once you stop reacting, once you stop caring, you realize something shocking. People respect you more. Think about the people you admire the most, the ones who seem untouchable, unshaken by criticism, unapologetically themselves. Are they the ones constantly seeking approval? Or are they the ones who walk their own path regardless of what others say? Strength attracts respect. Independence commands authority. The moment you stop needing validation is the moment you get it. But let's take this deeper. Why do we crave approval in the first place? Why do we fear rejection like it's life or death? The answer is ancient. Our brains are wired for survival. In prehistoric times, being accepted by the tribe was the difference between life and death. Alone, you were vulnerable. Together, you were safe. That fear of judgment, it's an evolutionary relic, a survival mechanism that no longer serves you. In today's world, you won't die if someone dislikes you, but your brain hasn't caught up. It still sends the same signal. Rejection equals danger. But here's the truth, it's a lie. And this is where philosophy becomes power. Because once you see this fear for what it is, an outdated, irrational impulse, you can override it, you can break free, and this is exactly what the greatest minds in history did. They realized that living for the approval of others is the fastest way to never live at all. Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. The world can judge, but you decide whether that judgment matters. So let me ask you this. If you knew with absolute certainty that no one's opinion could touch you, who would you become? What would you do differently? What risks would you take? Because that version of you, the one unchained by fear, already exists. The only thing standing between you and them is the illusion that other people's thoughts matter more than your own. Are you ready to let that illusion go? The power of indifference. How letting go of approval unlocks true freedom. Imagine waking up tomorrow and suddenly realizing that nothing anyone says about you, good or bad, has any real power over your life. Imagine walking into a room making decisions, creating, speaking, existing, all without that nagging voice in your head, wondering, what will they think? What would that version of you look like? Stronger, freer, more alive? That feeling you're imagining right now, that's real freedom. And here's the truth most people will never understand. The moment you stop chasing approval, the moment you stop needing other people to validate you, you become unstoppable. But let's break this down logically. Why do we even care about what others think in the first place? On the surface, the answer seems obvious, because we're social creatures, because relationships matter, because life is easier when people like and accept us. And sure, there's some truth to that. We don't live in isolation. We rely on people for opportunities, for friendships, for love. But here's where the trap lies. We mistake approval for connection. We assume that to belong, we must conform, that to be accepted, we must be liked. And that's a lie. The greatest philosophers, the ones who truly understood human nature, saw through this illusion. They realized that seeking approval is not about connection, it's about insecurity, it's about fear, it's about the deep subconscious belief that without validation, we are less worthy, less important, less real. But think about that for a second. If your worth is dependent on external validation, then who really controls your life? Not you. Every compliment, every criticism, every opinion someone else has suddenly dictates your self-worth. And that is a prison. This is why the Stoics trained themselves in indifference, not because they didn't care about people, but because they refused to let opinions define them. Epictetus, one of the greatest Stoic teachers, said, "If you wish to improve, be content to be thought foolish and stupid." Let that sink in. He's saying that the path to greatness, to true self-mastery, requires walking through a fire of judgment and not caring. Not because judgment won't happen, but because it doesn't matter. A person who fears looking foolish will never take risks. A person who needs approval will never do anything original. A person who chases external validation will never be free. And this is where it gets interesting. The moment you stop seeking approval, something paradoxical happens. People respect you more. Why? Because confidence is magnetic, independence is powerful. People are instinctively drawn to those who don't need them. Think about the people you admire. Are they desperate for validation? Do they constantly adjust themselves to fit the crowd? Or do they move through life with a quiet, unshakable certainty that their path is their own? That's what makes them compelling. That's what makes them leaders. Now, let's take this even deeper. Let's say you decide right now that you're done caring about what others think. What happens next? At first, it's uncomfortable. Your mind resists. It searches for approval out of habit. It wants reassurance. But then, something shifts. You realize that nothing bad happens when you stop seeking validation. You realize that the people who once judged you were never really thinking about you in the first place. You realize that the only thing holding you back this entire time was you. And this is where philosophy becomes practical. Because once you see the game for what it is, you can start playing it on your own terms. You can start asking real questions. If you weren't afraid of judgment, what would you create? What would you say? What risks would you take? How much of your life has been shaped by invisible rules no one actually enforces except your own fear? And now for the hardest question. If you don't take control of your own mind, who will? Because here's the truth. Society thrives on people who seek validation. It thrives on people who stay in line, who follow trends, who measure their worth by numbers and likes and comments. It thrives on people who want to belong so badly that they will trade their authenticity for acceptance. But the ones who break free, the ones who stop caring, they're the ones who set the trends. They're the ones who build, who create, who lead. They're the ones who live life on their own terms, while everyone else is stuck wondering what others will think. So let me ask you this. If you could silence that voice in your head, the one that worries, the one that hesitates, the one that seeks approval, who would you become? And more importantly, what's stopping you from becoming that person right now? The illusion of judgment, why people's opinions are never about you. Here's a thought that will change your life forever. People's opinions of you are not actually about you. They never were, they never will be. Every compliment, every insult, every judgment someone makes is nothing more than a reflection of them, their values, their worldview, their insecurities. The way people perceive you is filtered through everything they've experienced in their own lives, and yet we spend so much time trying to shape an image of ourselves that will please others as if their perception is some objective truth. It's not. It never was. Think about it. One person might admire you for your confidence, while another might resent you for the exact same reason. One person might think you're brilliant, while another dismisses you as arrogant. One person praises your ambition, another calls it greed. So, which opinion is the truth? Neither, because they are not seeing you, they are seeing a projection of their own beliefs, their own biases, their own fears and desires. And yet we let these projections control us, we let them dictate how we feel about ourselves. We adjust our actions, our personalities, our entire lives around the idea that we must fit into a version of ourselves that pleases the most people. But here's the paradox. No matter what you do, no matter how much you try, you will never be universally liked. It's impossible. Look at history. The greatest minds, the most influential figures, the ones who changed the world, were they loved by everyone? No. Many were hated, many were criticized, many were ridiculed in their time. Socrates was sentenced to death because his ideas challenged the status quo. Galileo was condemned for revealing truths that society was not ready to accept. Every revolutionary thinker, every bold creator, every fearless leader has faced judgment. And yet we hesitate to be ourselves because we're afraid a few people might not approve. But let's take this even deeper. If people's opinions of you are really just reflections of their own minds, then what happens when you stop trying to control them? What happens when you stop reacting? You become untouchable. You take back your power. Because here's another truth. When you stop caring about judgment, you stop being controlled by it. And when you stop being controlled, you start living authentically. Authenticity is rare. Most people live edited versions of themselves, constantly adjusting to fit expectations, constantly suppressing parts of who they are to avoid criticism. But the ones who refuse to conform, the ones who embrace their true nature without apology, those are the people we remember. Those are the people who inspire, not because they tried to be liked, but because they were too busy being real to care. And here's where it gets even more interesting. The moment you fully embrace this mindset, the moment you truly stop caring, something shifts in your energy. People sense it, they respect it, because deep down, everyone wishes they could be that free. Everyone wishes they could live without fear of judgment, without the need for approval, and when they see someone else doing it, they're drawn to it. This is why the most magnetic, compelling people are not the ones who try to please everyone, they are the ones who radiate self-assurance, who walk their own path, who exist without apology. So let's break it down even further. If judgment is an illusion, if approval is meaningless, if the only real thing is your own perception of yourself, then what's stopping you from being exactly who you want to be? What's stopping you from pursuing what excites you, from speaking your mind, from living the life that you want? The answer, if you're honest with yourself, is nothing but fear. And fear is just a habit that can be broken, a habit that must be broken if you ever want to experience true freedom. So ask yourself this: if you knew, without a doubt, that no one's opinion could ever truly define you, what would you do differently? How would you live? And more importantly, what are you waiting for? So let's break it down even further. If judgment is an illusion, if approval is meaningless, if the only real thing is your own perception of yourself, then what's stopping you from being exactly who you want to be? What's stopping you from pursuing what excites you, from speaking your mind, from living the life that you want? The answer, if you're honest with yourself, is nothing but fear. And fear is just a habit that can be broken, a habit that must be broken if you ever want to experience true freedom. So ask yourself this: if you knew, without a doubt, that no one's opinion could ever truly define you, what would you do differently? How would you live? And more importantly, what are you waiting for? At this point, you've seen the illusion for what it is. You understand that people's opinions are nothing more than reflections of their own minds, that approval is meaningless and that judgment only has power if you let it. But understanding this isn't enough. You have to live it. You have to internalize it so deeply that it becomes part of who you are. You have to reach the point where nothing external can shake you, where no amount of criticism, praise, or expectation can pull you away from your path. This is what it means to be untouchable. And once you become untouchable, you become unstoppable. But let's address the biggest fear. What happens when you truly stop caring? Won't people abandon you? Won't you lose relationships, opportunities, respect? The short answer, no. The long answer, you'll lose what was never real in the first place. Because if someone's respect or love for you is dependent on you conforming to their expectations, did they ever really respect or love you? Or did they love the version of you that was convenient for them? This is why detaching from judgment doesn't weaken your relationships, it strengthens them. The ones who truly belong in your life will stay. The ones who only valued you when you fit their mold will disappear. And that's a good thing, because when the wrong people leave, the right ones find you. The ones who resonate with your truth. The ones who don't need you to be anything other than who you are. And when you stop living for approval, you start attracting people who respect you for your authenticity, not for your ability to please them. But let's go deeper. What does life look like when you are no longer controlled by the fear of judgment? Imagine waking up every day with absolute clarity. You know what you value, you know what excites you, you know what kind of person you want to be, and you move toward it without hesitation. You take risks without overthinking. You create without doubting yourself. You speak without filtering your words through 1,000 imaginary critics. You make decisions based on your internal compass, not on the shifting opinions of the world. This is what the greatest thinkers, creators, and leaders throughout history have done. They didn't wait for permission. They didn't seek validation. They decided who they were and they lived it fully. And that's the real secret. Identity is not something you discover, it is something you decide. At any moment, you can choose to be the person who doesn't shrink under judgment, the person who doesn't hesitate, the person who lives with such conviction that others can't help but respect it. And here's where it all comes together. The key to not caring what people think is not to fight the fear, it's to transcend it. Instead of resisting judgment, you recognize it for what it is, noise, static in the background of your life. You don't need to defend yourself, you don't need to prove anything, you simply exist, fully and unapologetically. And when you reach that level of self-possession, you become truly free. So now, the final question, are you ready to let go? Are you ready to stop living for approval and start living for you? Because the only thing standing between you and the life you were meant to live is the illusion that other people's opinions matter more than your own. Let that illusion die and watch what happens next.